Hi everyone, we are back with another episode of our fascinating podcast allowing you to get to know people working behind the scenes of the crypto industry. Today we catch up with the COO of a crypto company called Oneiro. They are the developers of Ndau, the world's first adaptive cryptocurrency. Stay tuned to fully understand what that is all about. Welcome to the 50th episode of the Inside Crypto podcast. This episode was recorded on March 24th, 2022. John comes from a varied background and we touch on Ndau as well as NFTs, their NFT Forge, Bitcoin, Polygon, and way too many topics to list in the show notes. This is a must listen, and I really mean it. Before we get started, I would like to thank my employer, Amun Tokens, for making podcasts like this happen. Please don't forget to check us out and our products at tokens.amun.com. Thanks everyone for listening, and don't forget to tune in next week where we interview someone else in the cryptocurrency universe. Evening, morning, and afternoon, crypto people. I hope you're enjoying the roller coaster in the theme park that is crypto. We are here with the latest episode of the Inside Crypto Show, interviews and discussion with regular people like yourselves. Today, we are joined by John Lester, VP of Operations at Oneiro. They are a blockchain solutions organization and the creators of Ndau. I'm going to ask John later about pronunciation of all of that. If you don't know what any of those are, we're going to get into that in a moment. I have to do the usual disclaimer. Anything said by either John or myself does not constitute financial advice. You guys are crypto listeners, you know that. Our opinions are our own and not to be connected with our respective employers. Please do your own research. Because it's just John today on the show, we can spend a little bit more time talking about his background and how he got into crypto. John, thank you so much for joining us very early in the morning, your side of the world. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So my background originally is in healthcare. I was in the neurology service at Massachusetts General Hospital doing research, mostly around Parkinson's and Huntington's disease and some Alzheimer's research as well. And over time, I started getting more interested in computers and how they could be used to help connect people with each other and help them share information with each other. I was very interested in patient support groups, patients and caregivers sharing information with each other, creating these decentralized distributed networks across the internet and forming communities of practice and sharing support and content. So I switched gears. I hung up my lab coat and started working in medical informatics, and I created online medical education platforms at Harvard Medical School for advancing the case-based medical education teaching method, and got very interested in creating online support groups for people. And then eventually I left Massachusetts General Hospital and started working in the private sector. And I started working with some educational software companies. I worked with some online virtual world companies. I was an early employee at Linden Lab, the creators of Second Life. I did a lot of work with educational institutions. And so I've always been fascinated by these online communities and ways of having distributed content and decentralized networks. And so when I discovered Bitcoin around 2013, I didn't come at it from a financial perspective at all. I was just fascinated by the technology, the idea of having a decentralized and disintermediated network of nodes, and the idea of money that is not tied to the whims of human decisions. It's codified and it's transparent. And so I got very interested in Bitcoin, and I started dabbling in crypto as a hobby. And what happened over the years was I started focusing 100% on cryptocurrencies. I've done some early work with Ravencoin as well. And for the past 3 years, I've been working at Oneiro, and we've been building the cryptocurrency Ndau. That's how I got to where I am today.
It's good to know that I pronounced all of that correctly. Oh my God. Thank you. You mentioned some really cool things, and listeners of this podcast would know I'm a big gamer. Some of the people I work with at Amun are gamers. You just touched like the golden Linden Labs, Second Life. I mean, from your background, right, it sounds like you're somebody who you enjoy helping people, and online communities are a place where people can meet up and help people. You sound like somebody who's very used to in-person interactions. How did you shift from in-person to online interactions?
Yeah, that's a good question. The human brain is a really interesting thing. It's very good at filling in gaps. The human brain is really good at, you watch a movie and your mind, your emotions feel like it's a real thing happening in front of you, even though it's just on a screen. So with online communications, the trick is just having the right cues, right? Like as long as you have the right level of audio and the right sort of visual cues, everything just clicks. I've spent a lot of time looking at how different online communication tools provide different levels of what I call emotional bandwidth. And I think what's fascinating is that we've seen how flexible everyone's minds are in terms of communicating online. People form strong relationships with people, and they've never met them face to face. So I think my own personal journey of learning how to communicate online and connect with people is no different than anyone else's. And it's really because we have a wonderful collection of tools available now: audio tools, video tools, text-based tools, collaborative tools, multimedia tools. I think that's why that happens.
Going back to, you mentioned like 2013 Bitcoin, you're very interested in the technology. I often guest to the show, I said, what's that specific memory? And listeners would know. For me, it was reading an article about using your GPU to mine Ethereum back in the day, and me installing a whole bunch of stuff and figuring it out and doing stuff in command prompt and eventually getting things running and watching my GPU temperature skyrocket and freaking out. And what was that memory in 2013 that sort of brought you into Bitcoin? Was it an article or a person or
It was actually in Second Life, believe it or
Oh,
not.
okay.
It was someone in Second Life was talking about Bitcoin. And I remember, because in Second Life we had our own virtual currency. It's still around. Linden dollars. But they were saying there's this cryptocurrency, there's this thing called Bitcoin. And I distinctly remember, like, I see myself in the virtual world. Like, I was standing on a hill, I think there was a tree nearby, and they were talking about it, and it was something completely outside of the realm of Second Life, and they were talking more and more about it, and it sounded to me like an organism, like a living thing. It's like, this Bitcoin sounds like it could just grow like a living organism organically, and so that was my first click. I remember thinking, I need to check this out, and then that was the beginning of the journey for me into crypto.
Fantastic. That sounds really interesting. And listeners who are listening, if you have any questions for John, we'll leave his social media, whatever he's willing to leave, down in the show notes of this podcast today. So you can tweet at him, or you can even contact me and I can message John himself. And if you have any questions about his very fascinating background. Before the show, I actually asked, because I've seen John's resume and there's so much stuff that I just love to dig into. Maybe not on this podcast, maybe my other personal podcast as well, but that is for another podcast. We have to get into the crypto stuff today. So, John, the first question, and you've seen it yourself, is we should start with Oneiro, right? And could you give us a timeline of Oneiro and Ndau? What is Oneiro?
Sure. So it's all of this started really back around 2015, and it was a bunch of people who were really involved in Bitcoin at the time, and they were from a wide range of academic backgrounds and technical backgrounds, and they were looking at how Bitcoin was functioning back in 2015, and they thought, this is great, but what if we designed a cryptocurrency that was aware of market conditions and could adjust things based on market conditions, and offer something like the concept of staking rewards? No one was talking about this back in 2015. So it was really a think tank, and that was the beginning of what we call the Ndau Collective. The Ndau Collective being just a group of people sharing ideas in a think tank kind of way. And what came out of that was a template for designing this cryptocurrency, Ndau. And the company Oneiro was founded around 2016, 2017, and started building the technology. And also, this was always an open source project, so everything was always being put on to GitHub and to the public repos. So the core technology was built out in 2017, and the beta testnet went live on 2018, and then finally in 2019, that's when mainnet went live. So Ndau, the mainnet, its public mainnet blockchain has been running live nonstop since 2019 for the past 3 years, and then subsequently we got Ndau listed on Bitmart, Bittrex Global, Liquid, and most recently back in September of last year we got listed. Very excited getting listed on KuCoin, which is one of the top exchanges in the world. And I started at Ndau 3 years ago, and a friend of mine was talking to me who worked at Oneiro and was talking about this cryptocurrency, and I was already involved in cryptocurrencies. And what fascinated me again was this concept of an adaptive cryptocurrency that was able to adjust monetary policy based on demand in the market.
That is fascinating as well. And we have to talk about the adaptive stuff, but taking a step back from that is a lot of people who are into crypto know, everyone knows Ethereum and stuff. So Ndau is its own chain. It's not built on top of anything, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Again, you've been in the space for a while, and a lot of our listeners know people always talking about transactions per second and blocks and transaction fees. And could you give us a sort of a brief summary of how does that work on Ndau? Are you comparatively a Solana, like we talked about before the show, or you're Ethereum or an Avalanche, or just how does Ndau work?
We use Tendermint as our consensus algorithm. Anything built on Tendermint, like Cosmos, we're the most similar to, I guess you could say. But we are some completely customized blockchain. That's the because of the things that we wanted to do around staking and different ways of adjusting the monetary policy, we had to build our own blockchain at the time. And I remember in the early days we were thinking, like, could this be an ERC20 token? And we realized, no, we can't do it. It's too complicated what we want to do. Cram it all into a token on Ethereum. That said, though, the way Tendermint consensus works, transactions are validated basically instantly. And I would say look at Cosmos in terms of the most similar chain.
And everyone's very familiar with Cosmos. They're very popular as well. Tendermint as well. So that explains a lot and answers this question in my mind. Now, coming back to your adaptive cryptocurrency, I've looked at the website as well. I also asked a few community members, what do you think about adaptive cryptocurrency? And everyone was really curious about it. The website explains a fair amount. Why don't you tell us what is an adaptive?
Yeah, an adaptive cryptocurrency is one that, like I said, is able to change monetary policy based on market conditions. And so what that means is Ndau is designed to be an adaptive with a goal of buoyancy. So the monetary policy and everything is tweaked so that it is given the freedom to rise as more demand increases, and also to protect it from dropping too far to what we call a floor price. No Ndau is released into circulation, unlike Bitcoin and pretty much every other cryptocurrency where you're mining and here's a new block, here's a whole new bunch of crypto into the market. New Ndau is never released into the market unless the market price reaches what we call the next issued price. So it's a bonding curve, right? New Ndau is released into the market only when there is demand. And all of the sales of the Ndau that are sold at the next issue price for Ndau are go into what's called the endowment, and it is a real world nonprofit organization that is there to support the floor price and to basically give the monetary policy some teeth. So Ndau that are sold at the next issue price, those dollars go into the endowment, and if the Ndau price drops too far to what we call a floor price, then the endowment is used to buy that Ndau, to remove it from circulation and burn it. So there are these, you can see, like, by having these mechanisms, you're able to protect Ndau from dropping below a floor price, and you're able to basically allow it to be buoyant and keep nudging it up towards the continual next issued price. And the next issued price changes over time. So again, the thing to remember is that it's really released on a bonding curve that is dynamic, that is aware of what's happening on the market. So if Ndau sees the market price going in one direction or another, it's adjusting. That's what we mean by adaptive. I like the term aware as well. It's aware of market conditions and thereby can be adaptive in terms of releasing new Ndau into the market and removing Ndau from the market as well. And the other thing that happened is you also have disincentives too. So when the market price drops too close to the floor price, then there's something called SIB. It's basically, if you try to move Ndau to an exchange, you pay a fee on that. And any Ndau that's removed from that fee is also burned. It's destroyed. So it increases the value of everything in circulation. So you have disincentives, for people to move Ndau to an exchange. And then you also have, the biggest thing is an incentive to just hold it, because the incentive is such that if you hold Ndau in your wallet, just by holding it in the wallet app, it's automatically earning what we call EAI, which is really yield, right? And there's a base rate of about 10% based on how long you're holding it in your wallet, and you can earn bonuses. So if you lock your Ndau for 1 year, you're immediately earning 13%. And unlike the complex staking that you have to do with other cryptocurrencies, it's dead simple. It's completely simple. You just basically, as soon as you receive Ndau in your wallet, it starts to earn yield. And if you decide to lock it, which means you won't be able to transfer it or send it for a period of time. If you lock it, you get an additional bonus on that. So you have this combination of incentives for holding, disincentives for moving Ndau to an exchange when the market price is very close to the floor price. You have a self-aware system for releasing new Ndau into circulation only when there is demand, and for removing Ndau from circulation, buying it at the floor price and burning it, which is thereby reducing the amount in circulation, which is increasing the value of it. That's it in a nutshell. That's it in a nutshell.
I mean, that's a very expansive nutshell with all the terminology and
It's a
stuff.
big nut, isn't it? It's a big walnut.
It is. But it's explained very clearly, and I understood. So talking about this as well, like you guys have come up with a lot of very novel mechanisms. Funding curve is not novel, but the idea of going down to the floor and burning and incentivization, de-incentivization, all of these are really new. Why are you guys the only one doing this? Why isn't anyone else?
Good question. I don't know. It was because a lot of smart people thought about this for a long time. The amount of design that went into this and talking before any technology was built was crazy. And again, this started in 2015 with a think tank of people who were already Bitcoiners, and they loved Bitcoin, and they realized there's another way that we could build something that could be more of a long-term store of value. Because I'm a firm believer. I'm not a maximalist of any coin. I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I love Bitcoin. I've mined Bitcoin for years. I'm involved in other projects, open source projects around different cryptocurrencies, both proof of work and proof of stake. And it's like ecology, right? It's like everything has its own place in the ecosystem. The trick is to find a match of the right tool for the right job in your right place in the ecosystem. And Ndau has always been focused on creating a very simple financial instrument for people to use that is really good for a long-term store of value. It's not for traders. It's for people who want to get into crypto and just hold it and earn a yield without them having to learn how to do what you start talking about DeFi and how you have to try and earn yields and do yield farming and the liquidity providing and DeFi. It's just you need a PhD to do it. And the average person is just, I just want to hold some crypto and maybe watch it grow. And that concept of yields, it's funny because when this was designed, no one was talking about yields. No one was even using that term. This was back in 2016 when the plans were designed and finalized. One of the challenges we have is sometimes we've been doing things that now other people are starting to do, but they call it different things. So everyone's doing yields now, yields. Oh, and it's like, yeah, we've been doing that. We don't call it yield. We call it EAI. And so we've changed over time. We've adapted. We've changed our language. We've to use what everyone else is using. But in many cases, we were doing a lot of this stuff first. And it's like one of those things where if you start digging, you realize, oh, you guys are doing this before anyone else was doing it. You were just calling it something different. That's why we never heard about it, because everyone uses the current terminology.
I mean, and that makes a lot of sense because if you're going back and looking throughout history, there's always somebody who creates X and X becomes Y after 50 years or 20 years, and crypto is so fast. So, of course, a few years later, people are calling it staking and yield farming and LPing, as you've mentioned before, which is a really good point. Ndau sounds, and in a sense, and I love the idea of simplifying crypto because I think crypto I'm a big believer in it because I'm originally from South Africa, and I think a lot of my generation, a lot of people in Africa, a lot of people here in Taiwan. Before I worked in public relations, I was a teacher. A lot of my students are struggling to figure out how are they going to purchase a house in an island the size of Ireland, of Ireland. When Ireland has 4 million people, Taiwan has 23 million people. So housing prices are extremely high. Ndau is like the easy way. I think crypto is definitely a path for people. Ndau sounds like a stable coin. Is that correct in a sense, or maybe a more variable stable coin?
No, it is not a stable coin at all. No, stable coins are things that are backed one-to-one with a particular dollars. Like Tether is backed one-to-one dollars in a bank somewhere.
Sure, yes.
Ndau is not that at all. No, the endowment exists not to back Ndau. It exists to buy Ndau at the floor price and support the monetary policy. So the proceeds go into this endowment to support a floor price. It is absolutely not a stable coin. Although that's the thing. That's also a challenge too, right? When someone is introduced to something new, they immediately try to categorize it as something they already know about. That's also how the human brain is very good at for pattern matching. The human brain always looks at something and goes, "What does that remind me of?" Okay, I'm gonna believe that thing is that thing I already know. So
Yes.
it helps the brain be fast. It helps us adapt. It's a great evolutionary trait that we have, but it gets us into trouble. So when people start saying, "Oh, it sounds like you're a stable coin," and then they start treating us like a stable coin, it's like we're absolutely not a stable coin at all. There is no backing of Ndau with fiat or equity or anything like that. It is the endowment is a tool to allow the monetary policy, like I said, to buy Ndau back at the floor price, and then any Ndau that is sold at the next issued price as it is released along the bonding curve, that money goes into the endowment. And I encourage people, if you go to our website, go to the knowledge base is the Wikipedia of Ndau. You can really dig in. It's like, what exactly is the equation that you use to calculate the floor price? It's 50. The floor price is 50% times the amount of money in the endowment divided by the number of Ndau in circulation. That's the floor price. And there are a lot of other equations that when you look at them, crypto is math. You look at the equations and you go, okay, I get it. That makes sense. That's adaptive. I understand how the curve works and the incentives and the disincentives. But our main goal always has been all of this complexity that we talk about that is necessary. We hide that from the user. From the user's perspective, they just have a wallet and they go, oh, cool. I got this Ndau in my wallet. Oh, look at that. I have a little bit more Ndau than I had yesterday. Oh, I don't have to do anything when that happens. And we try to have our cake and eat it too. That saying. We have all this complexity, yet we try to focus as much as possible for the end user to make it as simple as possible for them to use.
Very interesting, and thank you for correcting me as well. It's always good to learn new things
Sure.
and correct assumptions. I had a look at your website. I had a look at some of your socials as well. You guys have a sizable community. What is the next step? Where are you hoping Ndau is going? I see, like you mentioned, look at the website. I'm looking at the Ndau monetary policy now, and you've got Ndau NFT, Ndau Collective,
Mm-hmm.
developers, resources. What's the plan for 2022?
Again, Ndau is a proof of stake, technically a delegated proof of system network. And that means there are people who run validator nodes. Think of like how Binance Smart Chain works. Similar, very similar. They actually also use Tendermint. So what happens is you have people who are running validator nodes and providing a service to the blockchain, and those people are rewarded with node rewards, right? So you can make Ndau, you can earn by running a validator node, and it's not a trivial thing to run a good validator node. It has to be online all the time. You have to stake Ndau, you have to stake a minimum of 1,000 Ndau to your node, and if you do bad things, if you're a bad actor and you do malicious things, that gets slashed. You lose your deposit. It's like an apartment. You lose your deposit if you trash the place. If you do bad things as a validator node, you lose your deposit. And we've been running our validator node network has grown. We're up to about 21 nodes, and that is fantastic. But we're doing moving forward is we want to expand the validator node ecosystem and give validator node operators more tools to be able to do more interesting things, because the way a validator node grows, and it's again the same way as with, say, Binance Smart Chain, you get other people to stake their Ndau to you. So that's yet another way you can earn with Ndau, is you can actually take the Ndau that you're holding in your wallet that's already earning yield, and take that Ndau and also stake it to a particular validator node, which will allow you to earn more yield based on whatever, on how successful that validator node is. And I see the validator node ecosystem as a whole new business ecosystem. People could run validator node as a separate little business, not little even, it could be huge. And we're going to be providing a lot more tools to allow people to see what's going on with the validator node network. Again, I think Binance Smart Chain does a really wonderful job with that. They already have wonderful tools for that. And we want to do the same thing and do even more, because I see part of the beauty of all of this is an open source decentralized project. Oneiro is a developer that is building tools for this network of Ndau and releasing them all as open source. But we want to get more tools out there for validator node operators, and we also want to encourage more people to contribute code. So building the open source community, that's the other thing that's going to be going, big in 2022. Getting more code contribution and other people building just interesting tools. Hey, someone build an interesting blockchain explorer that does things that Oneiro's doesn't do, right? Because again, Oneiro, when I say ours, I don't mean ours as an Ndau, ours as Oneiro. We're just a developer. I tell people when you say the word Ndau, replace it with the word Bitcoin, and then if your sentence doesn't make sense, then correct it, because everyone involved in working on Ndau is part of the Ndau collective. And Oneiro is just one part of that whole ecosystem. There are other organizations who are doing things and doing development and business development around Ndau as well. And we just want to see that whole ecosystem grow. And the last thing I'll say is, you probably noticed this just came up this week. We have a Ndau NFT Forge. We've just released a whole wonderful tool, a couple different tools that allow, it's again very easy. That's one of our incentives always that drives us at Oneiro, designing things that are simple for people to use. So it's a tool that allows people, a content creator or influencers, to mint an NFT on Polygon, because Polygon's a lot cheaper than Ethereum, and then to be able to actually get their NFT listed on Shopify, on their Shopify store, so anyone could buy it with just a credit card. So you could imagine if you're selling something on Shopify already, you could have your NFTs right alongside your sneakers or shirts or whatever else you're selling, and people could also just buy them with a credit card. And what we're going to be doing is right now with this initial release, we just are using Matic, Polygon's token, to mint these things, but we're going to allow you to use Ndau to mint your NFTs, and you're also going to be able to receive your royalties from secondary market sales of your NFTs in Ndau. And then the kicker is also, if you mint with Ndau, it's going to be at a discount. So you'll see, it's going to cost me $5 to mint this thing with Matic, and it'll cost me $3 worth of Ndau to mint it. Why not mint it with Ndau? And so those are the big things you'll be seeing. Yeah, it's going to be a fun year.
That is awesome. NFTs as well. That's something we're going to talk about like a little bit later, but maybe we'll just get into it now. So transition to talking about crypto in general, NFTs. Like, what are your thoughts on NFTs, Bored Apes, whatever it is?
First of all, I've been in the space since CryptoKitties. I don't know if you remember CryptoKitties.
Oh, of course.
And I actually have been in the space before the whole ERC 721 thing was going on, because if you noticed in my background, I've been involved in Ravencoin,
yes,
which is a fork of Bitcoin, proof of work. I love it. And it is focused on tokenized securities and digital assets. So with Ravencoin, you can create a token and you can attach metadata to it. The data is stored in IPFS. Sounds a lot like ERC 721, doesn't it? Except it's a chain dedicated just to that. So it actually has some advantages over ERC 721, to be honest. A lot of benefits, to be honest. And so I was always very interested in the idea of digital assets, and you've got these things that you can exchange, and there's metadata. What's the metadata? The metadata, it could be an image, it could be a movie, it could be a song, it could be any chunk of data, right? And you're exchanging it between people. So Ravencoin's, there's a lot of stuff happening with NFTs around Ravencoin, but they don't call it NFTs because, like Ndau, sensing a pattern here, I tend to get involved in things very early. No one was taught, they weren't calling them NFTs because they were before NFTs and on Ravencoin. I started, so when things started taking off on Ethereum, and what really Ethereum has become like the Manhattan of NFTs, it's the central hotbed, and it's really because of the growth of the secondary markets around Ethereum-based NFTs. But I'm a huge fan of NFTs, and I always lead with, I tell people NFTs are a lot more than expensive pictures. There's so much more, because the concept, it's interesting when you watch technology evolve, people play around with how they can use these tools, and a lot of the early ways they play around with it don't even hint at the full possibility of it. If you look at the earliest, for example, look at the earliest movies, right? When the motion picture camera was invented and the first movies that came out, try watching some of those early movies. They are incredibly boring and bad, because it's basically just people filming, it's a movie of a train driving by. That's the movie. Ta-da. Or it's a movie it's a single camera. They filmed a play, and that's it. The camera doesn't move. It doesn't change, doesn't zoom in or zoom out. It's just boring. And because people were trying to figure out, they were experimenting with how to use this motion picture camera thing. And it took years, no, it took decades actually, for the whole language of cinema, the language of movies, the concept of the jump cut, the dolly shot, the zoom, the jump cutting back and forth when people talk to each other, cut to one face, cut to another face. All of that language had to be invented, and it took years and years. And so with NFTs, it's the same thing. People got all excited about CryptoKitties. It was really the first generative NFT art, like all these thousands of them were just created with software with different traits and so forth. And then people realized, ooh, people like to collect things. This is like Pokemon cards. And we'll experiment with different traits. And then Bored Ape Yacht Club came along, did really wonderful work with all of that as well. But what people are realizing now, there's so much more potential. And I get very excited about NFTs in terms of their utility as things like membership tokens, right? You can prove that you can create membership networks based on these NFT tokens. And in this situation, there is no central repository for all of it. It's completely sovereign. It's self-sovereign. I hold my membership token. I can give it to someone else. How much is it worth? Well, let the market decide. Let the market decide how much this membership token is worth. So I think NFTs it's the new Wild West too. And I get asked a lot by a lot of people, what kind of projects are you doing or interested in personally in NFTs? And it's like the old .com days. It's the .com days and the .com craze, right? It was the Wild West, lots of scams, lots of money floating around, lots of businesses burned up and just died because they didn't really have a business model. And then after that, what happened? The ICO craze. Remember the ICO craze, right?
Oh yeah.
Same thing, Wild West, lots of scams, lots of money sloshing around, lots of companies that didn't have real business models spinning up and dying. And that's where we are right now with NFTs. But the thing that is fundamentally different about the NFT space is this concept of self-sovereignty. And this resonates very strongly with me because it's also what drives us at Oneiro with Ndau. And Oneiro, Ndau is a self-sovereign system, right? Like when you're earning your additional Ndau with the yields in your wallet, you have your private keys, your crypto, your keys. You don't have to, have it staked somewhere else to be earning in your wallet. And so NFTs, the same idea, the potential for content creators and creative people to create content, put it out there in a tokenized fashion as tokenized data, as a digital asset, and have the actual data for that asset exist also on a decentralized network. Most people use IPFS now, Interplanetary File System. That's a fantastic open source decentralized data storage platform that Ravencoin started using years ago, but now everyone's using it with Ethereum-based NFTs and Polygon-based NFTs. And it empowers the user because then you can start thinking about things like, wow, I'm in control of all of my data. It's a self-sovereign concept. All of my NFTs are in my wallet, my crypto private keys, my NFTs, my cryptocurrency. So that I think gives people a lot more freedom, and that's really my perspective on this whole NFT space. It's so early though, so early, and there's so much interesting stuff happening right now that it's mind blowing.
I totally agree. It's like when I started like deep diving on crypto and I give myself like a challenge on a month-to-month basis, try something new, be it staking, trying out new protocols. I tried out Solana NFTs for the first time 2 months ago, and that was very interesting as well. Now, a question I'm sure you probably get asked this a lot, and you've probably seen this online, and I'd love to get your take on it. Most crypto people know there's Ethereum, there's Avalanche, there's Solana, Polygon, there's the different scaling solutions as well. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's going to be a one solution fits all in the future when it comes to crypto, or are we going to be in the Amazon, Walmart, Target situation? Where do you see crypto going in the next 2 to 3 years?
I absolutely do not think there is one chain to rule them all. I don't. I think there are areas where there will be clear winners, but the same way it is in any ecosystem, you have certain perfect fits. And I think for Ethereum, for example, it's really figured out this. It's still work in progress, but it's figuring out the whole smart contract thing, the world computer thing. That's a whole separate thing. And whether Solana will eat Ethereum's lunch, the jury is still out. Will it be a layer 2 that solves things like Polygon? Oh, Polygon plus Ethereum is maybe better than Solana. Who knows? But it's this experimentation that has to happen the same way in the natural world you have different species experimenting by mutating and trying things out. Maybe I'll grow wings. Is this going to help? Yeah, great. I'll be a bird. There's different. It's just a lot of experiment. It has to be a lot of experimentation where things are released, products, different cryptocurrency chains, different side chains, different layer ones, layer twos, layer threes on top of that, and then experimentation. And sometimes, what I think what you have to keep your mind aware of too is that it's different tools for different purposes, right? If you want to move cryptocurrency like really fast in a completely decentralized solution and use it as actually transactional money, it's interesting to me, fascinating for me to see what happens with the Lightning Network on top of Bitcoin. It changes the game. People have always complained about Bitcoins, like, yeah, it's so slow. TPS, transactions per second, are too slow, too long to verify. You can't use it for money, like buying a cup of coffee. It's like, yeah, you're totally right. But what if you use Bitcoin as purely the settlement layer? And then all of a sudden you have El Salvador, where you go to McDonald's and you buy your coffee with a Lightning wallet, and it instantly clears. So I think the trick is to also remember that chains don't exist. All these technologies do not exist in a vacuum. It is the intersection of a lot of these technologies. The amazing things happen. The Lightning Network is all about Lightning and Bitcoin, and so Polygon plus Ethereum, right? Things like that. And I think the future is just going to be new technologies, not just being released, but looking at new ways of combining existing technologies. And the example I always like to give is around that is the iPhone. The iPhone did not pop out of Steve Jobs' laboratory as a completely new thing. What they did was they were in a lab. Look at this touchscreen technology that's been invented. That's cool. Let's put that over there on the bench. Now, look at this battery technology that's been invented. That's really interesting. Let's put that there on the bench. Let's look at this new type of glass called Gorilla Glass that would allow us to have a full glass screen without people breaking it every time they tap on it. Okay, let's put that over there. Let's look at the internet and how the internet could be used over cellular networks. Okay, let's put that over there. And they combined all of these pieces, all of these different technologies intersected at the right time, at the right place for the iPhone. And I think we're going to be seeing that with cryptocurrencies in general. I get very excited about the idea of what are people with Ndau. What other technology are people going to use around Ndau or combine it in a way I can't even predict? I think a glimpse of that is, I think, what we're doing with the Ndau NFT Forge. It's like, what does Ndau have to do with the whole NFT ecosystem? And I encourage people to go to our website and click through the Ndau NFT value proposition, and you start thinking, oh, actually, Ndau is a really interesting combination if you use it for royalty payments, because then your royalties are earning yield automatically. Oh my goodness, that kind of makes sense. So I think what we're going to see are new technologies, but also combinations of existing technologies in the cryptocurrency space that will create completely new things like the iPhone did back in 2007.
And you've made a great case for Ndau. John, now, one of the things, and again, another sort of very common issue is adoption, getting people into the space. And you've mentioned how easy it is for people to get to use Ndau. It's definitely not as complicated as staking crypto on Polygon or liquidity providing or anything like that. Do you think Ndau is the solution to onboard more people into crypto, or what should Ndau be doing, or what should crypto be doing to get more people into the space?
It's a good question, because I was setting up websites at Massachusetts General Hospital back in 1994, 95. And I had the first website at Mass General, and trying to get people to, okay, there's this thing called Mosaic, and you have to install it. Okay, your computer doesn't understand how to use TCP/IP, so you have to install this thing. It was so bumpy trying to get people onto the web back in those days. And that's where we are right now with crypto. It's just starting your journey. Like, how do I just buy some? Where do I buy it? Okay, you have to go to this thing called Coinbase or some other place. Now, what do I have to do? Okay, you have to transfer stuff from your bank to this thing, or try to use your credit card, but don't use any credit card, because some credit card companies don't like cryptocurrencies. They'll freeze your card, and so the average user goes, okay, now where is it? Okay, it's on this thing, but you don't want it to stay on an exchange. You want to keep it in your wallet. Okay, what wallet do I put it in? You have a whole bunch of different options. It just keeps getting more complicated. So I think What we're doing with Ndau is we're doing our part, right? Trying to make it very easy to, once you receive your cryptocurrency, your Ndau, to make it easy for it to grow with yield. And the same thing with the Ndau NFT Forge. We're trying to make it really easy to make an NFT. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to learn how to write Solidity contracts and things like that. But it's only one part of it. Banks need to somehow, they need to step things up. You should be able to go to your ATM and go, I'd like to pull that out in dollars, and I'd like that in Bitcoin. Just do that. You need to make it easier for the average user to just start getting involved, and then understanding also fundamentally how it's different than conventional money, where you have the wonderful thing about cryptocurrencies is that it's the whole concept of self-sovereignty, right? It's, I am in control, my private keys, I can do whatever I want, I can take my cryptocurrency and just walk anywhere in the world, and no one can. I have this freedom, but with that also comes responsibility. And cryptocurrency is very unforgiving when people lose their private keys. Oh, I lost my private keys. How do I get it back? I lost my Bitcoin private keys. Can I call the Bitcoin company and get it back? No, sorry. Your average person doesn't understand that because it's so new to them. They're so used to being completely dependent on other companies and other centralized organizations. And sometimes that's a good thing. A lot of times it's not a good thing. And I think one of the things are we just need to, everybody in this ecosystem, the people working with exchanges, the banks, the people just building multi-currency crypto wallets. There's so many multi-currency crypto wallets. The people building hardware wallets. Everyone has to figure out and hyper focus on making this as easy as like getting on the internet today. Because where we are right now is getting on the internet in 1994, 93 maybe even. It's a group effort. We all have to work together.
That's a great analogy. I remember modems back in the day, dial-up, basic AOL instant messenger, and that's how online communities were created back in the day of the early 90s. 286 processors back then.
And that's where we are with crypto today. That's where we are.
That's a very good explanation, because I feel like a little bit sad but kind of hopeful at the same time. Like, I wish we could progress faster, because I know there's so much crypto could give to people and sort of open up avenues and opportunities and that sort of stuff. But we just have to hold on. John, I always like to give our guests this sort of opportunity. Is there any sort of last pearls of wisdom you want to give, or anything you want to plug when it comes to Ndau?
I think, going back to what I was saying earlier, think about how different technologies can be combined to create something greater than the sum of the parts. Check out Ndau. Look at how Ndau is integrating with the NFT technology, the NFT ecosystem. But also think about, if you're thinking about Ndau, think about, could Ndau be used in combination with some other cryptocurrency or some technology or something? It's open source. It's an open source project. Anyone could. It's like exactly like Bitcoin in that respect. You go to the repo on GitHub. It's all there. But think about how it could be used and combined with other things to make something completely new that I have not thought about, or anyone at Oneiro has thought about, or anyone on the planet has thought about. Because I think that's a good mindset to be in, just in general, when you're looking at Ndau and when you're looking at any cryptocurrency, you're looking at any technology, because that is where there's great innovation in a single thing being created, but there's even greater innovation when you combine that thing with other things to build something that does something no one ever saw before. And I think the other thing I would like people to take away is there's all, especially in the NFT space, it's like, oh, there's this scam, and there's new language now. Everyone says, oh, it's a rug. What's a rug? Oh, you mean a scam? Okay, yeah. There's new language for the same old thing. It's been happening. It's always been this way. It's nothing new. Rug is just a scam. It's a scam, and it's just the same bad things are happening. And it's really just because this is the Wild West. It's the crazy startup times of the .com era and the crazy ICO days in 2017 era. And the trick is just to always be skeptical, always think really hard, and do a lot. I know everyone says do your own research, and do more than just looking at a couple of random YouTube videos. Like, really do research. Really look into, before you jump into anything, like, who are the people working on this? What's the history of this thing that they've done? And then at the same time, don't be afraid. Don't hesitate to just get out there and try to learn about all these new things, because it's changing so fast in the crypto space, in the NFT space. And at the end of the day, it's about, what are we doing? We're trying to create a world that is much more self-sovereign, where people have more freedoms and are in control more, and where there's more transparency, where there are less people in the middle taking a cut of things. It's more about, like, creator is able to connect right with the consumer. And so that's what cryptocurrency is all about. That's what Ndau is all about. And I think personally there's no more beautiful high level goal than that.
Those are some, I always ask this question. You've just dropped so many good pieces of wisdom that I hope folks will take to heart. And this whole podcast has been really, really enjoyable for me, because you've thrown a lot of like very easily understandable and digestible pieces of information at people, and explained Ndau in a really understandable way, and how awesome it is. I'm excited about it, to see what you guys do this year, and Oneiro as well, and what's happening for 2022, and NFTs, of course. John, if you are able to, or if you would, besides people joining Ndau on through their socials and social media, is there any way for people to follow you, be it Twitter or other places?
Yeah. So the easiest way to go down the rabbit hole of finding me and talking to me is start with my Twitter. I'm Pathfinder. Just
nice.
Pathfinder.
Like PATHFINDER.
That's it, Pathfinder. And yes, I was very early on Twitter. That's how I got a name like that. Like, everyone tries to buy it from me. I'm like, no, I'm not selling this name. But start with me on Twitter, and if you go to my profile on Twitter, you'll see a link to I think it's a link to my name tag page, or you'll be able to find all different. Oh, then you find me on LinkedIn. Oh, then you'll find me on what's my Discord name. And but start with me on Twitter. My DMs are always open on Twitter, and I also, if you again just follow the links through my Twitter profile, my email, you can reach me through email as well. Happy to talk to anybody about anything.
Thank you, and I appreciate you being so open about that. Again, it's crypto, so some people are very private, and I appreciate you sharing your Twitter handle.
Sure.
John, thank you very much for your time today, and participating in the podcast, and coming on and sharing all this like really cool, exciting, interesting information. One of the greatest things I love about doing crypto podcasts is that I was learning new things, understanding new projects, and Ndau is just like doing my own research and speaking to someone involved in the project is just so much better. And I hope our listeners enjoyed today's show. And if they liked, what you've said, if they're interested, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, please, do follow you, contact you, ask you. Again, if you're too shy, you can always ask me, and I can ask as well. And I'm definitely going to have you on later, because there's a whole bunch of stuff about Ravencoin, being an Ethereum miner as well. And a lot of Ethereum miners around here in Taiwan. Okay, we're switching to Ravencoin next. I'd like to talk about proof of work and proof of stake stuff. But now we're going to keep this nice and short, under an hour, very digestible. Thanks again, John, and hopefully talk to you soon, maybe in a few months' time.
Wonderful. I look forward to it. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
That's all we have time for today, folks. I and everyone at Amun really appreciate you stopping by. Please don't forget to follow us on social media, Twitter at Amun, AMUN, Telegram at Amun Tokens, or stop by our Discord and join in the conversation. If you are Chinese speaking, we now have a Telegram group just for you, Amun Tokens CN. We are also on Reddit at r/Amun Tokens. Amun also puts out a monthly newsletter with the latest insights on the crypto market. You can sign up for that wonderful piece of writing on the bottom of our homepage. If you're looking for a place to call home, there's nothing better than the Amun community. Looking forward to chatting with you, and see you guys next time.